Hello, everyone. Hello, Northeast readers, and hello, fourth graders for the Battle of the Books. Yesterday, I started A Lion to Guard Us, and I read chapter 1. Today, I will continue by reading chapters 2 and 3. Joining us today, we have my dogs Bailey and Barley, and my son Peter. Hi! A Lion to Guard Us by Clyde Robert Bulla. A story. Mistress Trippett and all of her family had had supper. The servants had been fed. Amanda was in the kitchen alone. She had just washed the pots and pans and hung them over the fireplace to dry. She looked in at her brother and sister on the back stairs. They were asleep. Jemmy's head was against the wall. Meg's head was against his shoulder. It hurt her to see them there, like two puppies that nobody wanted. Why couldn't they come into the kitchen and be warm? But Cook wouldn't have it. They'd be under our feet, she said. They've got their own room. Let them stay in it. Amanda had stood up to her. They're not to be shut away in a room all day. It's bad enough to leave them on the stairs, but at least they're next to the kitchen where they won't be so lonely. She looked at them sleeping there. Jemmy was getting to be a big boy. He would be a fine, strong man like his father. But Meg was too small, too thin. Amanda woke them. She gave them their supper, beef stew with bread and butter. Eat, she said, while I go to Mother. Mother was in a room down the hall. Once, all four of them had lived in the room. It had been almost like a home. Now it was a sick room. The little ones could not stay there. Mistress Trippett had put them into a tiny room in the back of the house, and they slept there at night. Sometimes Amanda slept with them. Sometimes she sat up all night, half asleep, half awake, by her mother's bed. Here is a picture of the two children sitting by the kitchen. She carried a lighted candle into the sick room. Mother lay with her eyes closed. She had not left her bed since the day before Christmas. That was the day she had fallen on the stairs. But she had been ill long before that. Amanda sat by the bed and took her mother's hand. She began to tell her about the man who had come from America, but she soon stopped. Why do you talk to her? Cook said. It's like talking to the wall. She doesn't even know you're there. And it did seem to be true. Ellie looked in. Do you want me to sit for a while? Oh, would you, Ellie? I want to put the little ones to bed and talk to them a bit. Amanda went back to Jemmy and Meg. They had eaten their supper. She took them to their room. They had a pallet for a bed. Mistress Trippett had given them some covers. One was a piece of red velvet curtain, faded and old. Jemmy liked to wear it for a cloak and play the fine gentleman. Amanda put the candle on the floor. She sat in the middle of the pallet. Jemmy and Meg lay down on either side. She tucked the covers about them to keep out the cold. Now, she said, I'll tell you a story. About Father and the lion? Asked Jemmy. I've told you that, she said. I've told you that and told you. No, you haven't, he said. Not for a long time. So Amanda began. Once a man came to London to seek his fortune. That's Father, said Jemmy. Yes, she said. His name was James Freebold, said Jemmy. That's my name, too. That's my real name. He met a beautiful maiden with golden hair. That's Mother, said Jemmy. And they were married and had 3 children. 3 fine children, said Jemmy. James Freebold was a carpenter. He could build houses. Do you remember the house we used to have? He built that for us. I know, said Jemmy. Tell the story. There is a land called America, said Amanda. Some call it the New World. It's across the sea, and it's a beautiful land with rivers and trees and birds. Indians live there, and they wear feathers and shoot with bows and arrows. Some men asked Father to go there with them to help build houses. They were going to build houses in towns and live in America in a place called Virginia, said Meg. Yes, you like that name, don't you, Meggie? Father said even if we were poor in London, we would be rich in Virginia. We would have our own fields and gardens. Remember the song he used to sing? She sang very softly. There are lands a-calling me from across the wide blue sea, and I'll find a home one day in a fair land far away. Tell the story, said Jemmy. Well, you and Meg and I had to wait with Mother. Virginia was a wild place. It wasn't ready for women and children. Father went ahead, and we moved to Mistress Trippett's because Mother worked there. You didn't tell it all, said Jemmy. Well, yes, I did. No, you left out the lion. Oh, said Amanda, There was a door knocker on the house where we used to live. Before Father went away, he took it off and gave it to us. He gave it to me, said Jemmy. He gave it to us all. It's a lion's head. He said it was a lion to guard us while he was gone. Jemmy said again, he gave it to me. From under the covers, he took out a small lion's head made of brass. A brass bar hung from its mouth. He swung the bar back and forth. Don't you want to hear about the sailor man? Asked Amanda. He was here today. He'd been to Virginia, and he saw Father there. Father has a house, and he wants us to come. When? We have to wait. Why? For Mother to get well. Now go to sleep, you too, Meg. She waited until they were asleep before she slipped out of bed. She picked up the candle and went back to Mother's room. Remember, the book is called A Lion to Guard Us, and that's where the lion comes in. Chapter 3, Dr. Kreider. Ellie said the next morning, it's been a while since Mistress came downstairs. This might be the day. At least once a week, Mistress Trippett surprised them in the kitchen to make sure that all was neat and no one was idle. And just after breakfast, they heard the click of her heels on the front stairs. I told you, whispered Ellie. The servants stood like soldiers. Mistress Trippett came down into the kitchen. She looked small, even in her high heels and her tall red wig. Her eyes were like little black beads. And there's a picture of Mistress Trippett. She swept through the kitchen. She peered into the pantry and into the cupboards. She opened the door to the back stairs. Amanda held her breath. Jemmy and Meg were there. Once Mistress Trippett had called them idle brats, but today she almost smiled as she shut the door. The children have grown, she said. How old is the boy? 8, ma'am, answered Amanda. And the girl? Only 5, ma'am. Suddenly, Amanda felt bold. Do you think they might come into the kitchen? Why, certainly, said Mistress Trippett, and she swept off upstairs. Cook's face was like stone. I'll not have those brats under my feet. You will if Mistress says so, said Ellie. Cook struck at her with a spoon, and Ellie jumped out of the way. Cook suddenly shouted at Amanda, Don't stand there like a nutty. Fetch some water. Amanda took up the water pail and ran. The pump was on the street, 2 doors down. She pumped the pail full. It was a heavy wooden pail, filled with water. It was as much as she could lift. Every few steps she had to put it down. Someone came up beside her. Amanda, said a voice. A man was there. He was dressed in black. His beard was gray, and there were little lines about his mouth that gave him a friendly look. Good day, Dr. Kreider, she said. Well, child, you can't carry that. He tried to take the pail, but she held on to it with both hands. Thank you, sir, but they wouldn't like it if you carried the water. Well, who wouldn't? Cook and Mistress Trippett. They needn't know. Mistress looks out the window. She might be looking now. Besides, it's my work. Why? I'm taking Mother's place. Amanda carried the pail a few steps and set it down again. Are you here to see Mother? Yes, he said. How is she? Better, I think. Today she looked brighter. Amanda, don't you have a father? Oh, yes, she answered. He's in America. America? I never knew that, he said in surprise. Did he go to the colony in Virginia? Yes, sir. He's in Jamestown. America, the new world, said Dr. Kreider. That's an old dream of mine. If I were a young man, I'd be there today. We were all going there, my mother and brother and I. We are all going there, my mother, brother, and I. And sister. We're going as soon as Mother is well. Are you indeed? He said. They had come to the house and they parted there. He went to the front door and she to the back. It was more than a week before she saw him again. Late one afternoon, she thought she heard his voice in the hall. She asked Ellie, Is the doctor here? Ellie looked at Cook, and they both looked at her, and neither spoke. I want to see him, said Amanda. May I go? Finish your work, said Cook. The kitchen began to grow dark, and Amanda was lighting the candles when Dr. Kreider came into the room. He looked tired. The lines in his face were deeper. Amanda, he said. Yes, sir? Will you come with me? She went with him into the hall. They were alone there. I must tell you something, he said. She looked into his face. Amanda, your mother is dead. She stood still. I'm sorry, he said. I did what I could. She felt as if she were choking. She put her hands to her mouth. Did you hear me, child? She nodded. Do you want me to tell your brother and sister? She tried to speak. He asked again, "Did you hear me?" "Yes," she whispered. "And shall I tell your brother and sister?" She spoke then. "No, sir, it's for me to tell them." And that's the end of chapter 2.